Welcome to Direct, meditating on the way. Direct is the Hebrew word for way. And this is our project where we meditate on the way by reading the Psalms together, studying the Psalms together, and meditating on the Psalms together. My name is John Mark Hicks, and our Psalm today is Psalm 4.
And I am Bobby Valentine. I do want to welcome you to Meditating on the Way with myself and John Mark. We are going to be thinking about Psalm 4 today and learning a little bit about the evening prayer and the great tradition of the church, sometimes known as compline.
And Psalm 4 is situated between, as everybody would know, between 3 and 5. So, kind of what's the significance of that, Bobby? It's not just numbers, there's something else going on, isn't there?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this particular psalm is in book one. In book one, it begins with the introduction to the book, Psalm 1 and 2, which where our title for our podcast comes from, is direct, that there is a way in walking with God. Psalm 2 lets us know that there are along the way, and Psalm 1 does too, that there's people who walk a different way. They are the enemies. These enemies are against the Lord's anointed, and the Lord's anointed can be the king, but also the people, us who are walking with him. And in Psalm 3, we get our first dose of what those enemies or less than friendly people look like. And it causes a certain amount of angst among the psalmist. And they show up again in Psalm 4. There's these two psalms, Psalm 3 and 4, tied together by a notion of lying down and going to sleep, waking up and having confidence in the face of aggression towards ourselves. After Psalm 4, which is known again as the evening prayer, the psalmist prays to the Lord, asks him to give him some space or area to breathe, and turns teacher, but confesses that he's going to lie down in security because the Yahweh is his God, his protector. And then immediately following this, the way the psalm is laid out, is a morning prayer. I go to sleep at night and I surrender myself to the safety of the Lord. That's the ultimate act of trust. I am defenseless at night. And then I wake up in the morning. I have called to him, and I wake up in the morning and I come before him again, fully alive. It's almost like the rhythm of evening and morning. It's the rhythm of grace that goes through that. And I love these particular psalms because they help us to pray along the way. Does that make sense, John Mark?
Yeah, we definitely want to talk about our prayer life in terms of Psalm 4 and Psalm 5. The
Yeah.
evening and the morning, it sounds like Genesis 1, right? The evening
Yes.
and then the
Evening,
morning
morning.
makes the
That's
day.
right.
And that's kind of the Jewish way or Hebrew way of thinking about the day. Begins it in the evening and leads to the morning as one day.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so we get two prayers, the one that ends the day and one that begins the day,
That's correct.
which
That's
gives
correct.
us a sense of what prayer life was like in Israel. It was
Absolutely.
a constant prayer. Now, both of these
Right.
prayers, though, are set in the assembly of God's people.
That's right.
As we
That's right.
notice from the very superscription, this is to the chief musician. This is to the director of the choir, you might say, or the director of music.
That's right.
And this particularly includes uh, instrumental music.
That's right.
So give us a setting for what that would look like, perhaps.
Well, the in the time of Jesus, but even in the time before that, we don't know as much about. But the children of Israel would gather together in the presence of the Lord upon the holy hill of Zion. They would gather perhaps on a pilgrimage, and the Levites, with their instruments, would lead the people of God in worship. And they're singing their prayer. The Levites would say this, the people would respond, and it would set a mood. We're there with the other pilgrims, and we confess our our allegiance, if you want to call it that, our faith, our trust, and also the psalm by being led in this worship assembly with all the other people, it's calling me to a certain way of life. I won't be like them, but I will be like God. I will
Yeah.
mirror him back into the world, so to speak.
So, and every time we
And
assemble, and we pray a prayer like this, we're
that's
actually
right.
making a
That's right.
choice about which
That's right.
way we're going to follow, right? What
That's
is the
right.
way we're going to embrace?
That's right.
And so,
And this psalm,
yeah, go
this
ahead.
I was just going to say this psalm has several indications that it is embedded in worship, and that is in the heading that you saw in the Septuagint version that Paul and many in the early church read. We have two of the words that show up in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 19, the word psalm and the word ude, where is translated spiritual song there in Ephesians 5. And this particular psalm is identified as that. And then you have that word Selah in the text, and it's a short psalm, but it's there twice in our particular psalm, which it comes after a certain place, and it seems to scholars debate what this word means all the time, but it's a musical term that maybe means to pause or maybe to listen. In the Septuagint, it's often translated as interlude on the strings, so to speak. And this particular psalm is set on the strings, and most of the psalms are all instrumental. But here this is the particular instrument we want. And
We're on
now
stringed instruments. Yeah. Mm.
we're going to, as a certain thing is said and sung together in prayer, then it's a pause and you just kind of let that sink in. What did we just say?
Right.
And as the group, so you get both the audible part and perhaps a moment of stillness or quietness
An
with the movement,
instrumental interlude, you might say,
instrumental interlude.
something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think you're making a really good point that in Ephesians 5:19, psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, we got two of those three categories here in the superscription of Psalm 4. And Paul actually quotes Psalm 4 in
yeah.
Ephesians. He
He
quotes it
does
in
indeed.
Ephesians 4, verse 26, when he
That's
says,
correct.
don't be, be angry and not sin.
That's right.
He's quoting Psalm 4, verse 4. So when Paul uses the language of psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, he's certainly thinking about the Psalter, right?
Well, that's right.
I think he's specifically thinking about the Psalter. He may
He
include more
is.
than that, but
Yeah.
certainly the Psalter is a part of it.
Yeah.
And when he's talking about making melody in our hearts to the Lord, that's using the Psalter to make that melody, which
Yeah. Yeah.
includes stringed instruments here in Psalm 4. Yeah.
That's right. Well, all three of those terms, psalms, hymns, and spiritual psalms, occur in several of the psalms, with each one of those
Yeah,
as
all three
heading.
together occur like
That's
three
right.
times, right?
Yeah.
In
So,
a superscription.
absolutely. That's right.
Well,
So,
let's read the psalm together. One more point, perhaps. We were stressing the communal dimension of this, although it's written as kind of an individual, whether it's an individual lament or whatever genre it really fits into, which is some debate about. But it's an individual. It's speaking in the I, but the
that's
I
right.
also addresses others.
That's right.
Uh,
The,
and then when it's put into the Psalter, it's not just individual anymore.
yeah.
It is part of the assembly. It's part of the
That's right.
community, and so
I often,
it moves from
uh,
an I to a us kind of
that's right. That's
experience.
how I put it sometimes. I usually say that the I becomes a we. When
Yeah,
I come into the assembly, I still have my individual concerns, but I become a we,
yeah,
as we all become kind of the I, like a corporate I.
mm,
And so, yes, the
yes,
individual and the community, they cannot be split apart here. It
yeah.
is,
Sometimes contemporary um, worship music is critiqued because it has a lot of eyes in it.
yeah,
And I understand that that can be, egotistical, it can be
right.
self-centered, it can be individualistic, but it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't.
When the I enters the assembly, when the song of using the I, the person, the individual enters the assembly, then we become a corporate I. We become a
That's right.
communal
That's right.
we, and we can all pick up this language and sing this, even though we're
Right.
continuing to say I. Like just
Yeah.
as I am. Right? I mean, just as I am is an I, but when we sing it as a community, it becomes a we. Right?
That's right. Our worship is everybody's. The concerns here are these are my concerns and my neighbor's concerns, and we're all come together. And we are joined together as an individual being made one in prayer before the Lord.
Yeah,
And so, yeah.
exactly.
So,
All right. Well, I think
well,
we keep talking about the song, but I think we need to read it. Then we can talk some more about
absolutely,
it. So, Bobby, we want to do the honors of reading the Word of God here.
absolutely. Psalm 4. To the leader with stringed instruments, a psalm of David. Answer me when I call, O God of my right. You gave me room when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer. How long, you people, shall my honor suffer shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies? But know that the Lord has set apart the faithful for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. When are you when you are disturbed, do not sin. Ponder it on your beds and be silent. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, oh, that we might see some good. Let the light of your face shine on us, O Lord. You have put gladness in my heart more than when their grain and wine abound. I will both lie down and sleep in peace. For you alone, O Lord, make me lie down in safety. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Well, that is a short, but I think a powerful psalm, an evening prayer. And you notice he addresses God at the beginning and the end.
That's right.
And in the
Heavenly Father.
middle, he's talking to these other people,
That's right. Yeah.
and primarily teaching other people how to
Right.
handle the distress, that they have. I
That's
lost
right.
your image there, Bobby.
You sure did. I
Yeah.
don't even know how.
Okay.
So.
Well, people don't necessarily want to see you. They just want to hear you. Okay. No, well, all right. That'll work. That'll work. Um, so that opening answer me when I call, oh
That's right.
God of my right. Give me room. There's a petition, there's a request that when I'm in distress, I want God to be gracious to me.
That's
What
right.
what do you hear in that first verse that strikes you?
Well, what I hear is confidence. This person, community, believes that when they call, God will hear. It's not that God will answer me after I call, God will answer when I call. And I think that's really important because it's not after the crisis that is something that I need help with. I need help while it's going on from the Lord. And so when I call, and he's going to make that a little bit clearer down in verse 3 that he's going to hear my call, he's going to hear
Mm,
my cry. So when I do, I have confidence that the Lord is on my side, and that's why the psalmist calls him the God of my right, the God of my righteousness, the God of my rescue, the God of who he's the one who is there, and I have full trust, full confidence that when my need is present, that's why I call him
okay, so
because
you want to put this in as a psalm of confidence rather than a psalm of lament, right?
yeah, I think that the psalmist is uh, troubled by what some other people say,
Like in verse
but
2. Yeah.
in verse 2, and he is perhaps even losing some sleep, but he is confident that God is over those people and over this situation, that God's got it in control. God
Yeah.
is, I, as he's going to say later on, I'm going to sleep in peace.
Right.
And he does that precisely because this God is on his side. God has heard me. God has
Right.
heard my prayer. The problem's taken care of.
He's going to
I,
have peace because he's voiced his concerns. He's
that's
voiced
right.
his prayer. He's called upon God, and the answer there is the imperative. It's answer
Yeah,
me.
answer me.
So
Yeah,
there is this request, but it's a request that he has great confidence in.
that's right.
That God is going to answer. So we ask God to hear our prayer. I mean, that's a common liturgical phrase: "Hear our prayer, O Lord."
Right.
And it's not because we're in some kind of doubt whether God would hear our prayer, but it's rather just a way of expressing our trust that when I pray, God's going to hear. And
That's
so
right.
answer me when I call. There's not a doubt embedded in
Right.
that.
That's
There
right.
is a confidence that's there.
Yeah. And the request that the person makes, and the only request that's actually made in the psalm is right there in verse 1, is give me space, kind of like, let me have a peace of mind. I'm giving it to you, and he calls as being gracious to me.
Yeah.
Um, and the background there, at least as I read this particular psalm, is the blessing itself, the priestly blessing in Numbers chapter 6,
The Aaronic
where
blessing, right?
the children come before the Lord, and God has specifically told the sons of Aaron that they need to bless the people by let them know that when they call on me, that I will be gracious to them. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you. May he be
May the Lord be
gracious.
gracious to you. Yeah. Yeah.
And so here, this is what the psalmist, if they come into this worship assembly, into the temple, gathered together, and they're okay, this is what I need. I'm looking for, and it's not even taking away the trouble. It's give me, I'm praying in confidence, but give me this space so that I, well, for lack of a better term, that I actually live what I'm saying.
Mhm.
that
Well,
I,
the
that I
God of my
walk.
righteousness,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean,
that's
I mean,
right.
I don't know how you take that phrase. Some people take it as the God of my righteousness. That is my righteous God.
Right, my righteous
I
God.
I tend to think of it as my righteousness, though, literally, and I
Yeah,
tend to think that uh, you answer me when I call, the God of my right, the one in whom I have committed myself to, the right way, or the right God, or the God of my right. That
yeah,
is, I'm committed to this way, and I'm committed to this path. And so when I
the
call, God's going to answer.
yeah, the God who I have been faithful to, and he
Yeah,
confesses that
yeah,
he's faithful to you.
exactly.
So
In fact, in
I
verse
have.
3, we get the idea of faithful, right?
That's right. I am in a covenant relationship with this God. This psalm
Exactly.
presupposes that
Yeah.
covenant relationship, and I have walked with him, and now he is the God of that covenant. Watch over me, give me this space. I don't think he's claiming any kind of sinlessness or anything of the sort,
No,
but
no,
he
not at all.
does say, "I am on your side. I am faithful." In fact, I am one of the faithful ones. That's
Yeah.
why I believe God will hear me. So I agree with that
It's
particular
it's it's
understanding.
also, I'm
Yeah,
one of the faithful in verse 3, because the Lord has
yeah,
set apart the faithful for God's own self. But still he needs God to answer, and God be gracious.
that's right.
This He needs
That's
the
right.
blessing of God. He needs
That's
God's
right.
activity. That
That's
this
right.
isn't something he's going to stand on. He needs God to make some space for him when he's under
That's right.
distress.
That's right.
That
That's
word
right.
distress in verse 1 is, you might translate it narrow or
Yeah.
strict,
Yeah.
or one
Well,
translation I think says tight spot. So
that's
give
right.
me
Well,
some
pressure is
room
pushing
in
in
this
on
tight
you.
spot.
That's right.
Yeah,
So yeah.
we're
So
stressed out,
pressure's
pressed.
coming in, and when that happens, bad things happen. I mean, and old church father by the name of John Chrysostom, when he was thinking about this particular idea about giving space, he compared it to the three young men in Daniel chapter 3 who are tossed in the fiery furnace. It's hard to get more pressure and stress than that. That you're going to get thrown in and burned alive,
Mm.
and yet God doesn't take away, as they call, well, God can deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we're still going to serve him. And God doesn't take away the flames. In fact, the king is so mad that he tells them to make it even hotter. And
Right.
yet, and especially even in the Greek version of Daniel, there's so much space given to them that they actually start to praise God. They sing and pray inside the inside that space, if you will.
Right.
And God has given them that, and that's what the psalmist is saying here, I think.
Hmm.
Let me be able to go through this just like those three in the fiery furnace. Of course, when the psalm was written, he doesn't know about that. But we further down the story
Yeah.
can look at this is
Well, it's
what
an
God had
example
done.
of
Yeah,
being stressed. I mean, the word,
absolutely.
it's about being anxious, being stressed out. We're
Exactly.
feeling the pressure. We're feeling closed in on. And so we
Anxiety.
go to God and say, well,
Yeah,
God, give me some space here. Give me some wiggle
absolutely.
room. Give me
That's right.
some,
Yeah,
be gracious to me.
yeah.
And
I just
then in
need
verse, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I need breathing room. That's what
Yeah,
I need to take a break. Not a break, but I need to take a breath.
right.
I need a
And I need to be
breather.
able to sleep.
That's right.
Right. I need to
That's
be able
right.
to sleep. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of,
So,
you're bringing all that stress, whatever it is, to this moment of you're going to bed and you're going to go to sleep. What are you going to do with that stress?
that's right.
Is it going to
Yeah.
disturb your sleep, or are you going to
Yeah.
be able to lay it aside? You're going to be able to give it over. You're going to be able to say, all right, I'm really in a lot of stress here, but I know where my shalom is actually found. And
Absolutely.
I'm gonna put my eggs in that basket and
Right.
believe and trust in God. Right?
That's right.
But he
And
is under some kind of stress in verse 2. I mean, he's addressing how long you people, which is actually sons of Adam, right?
yeah.
That's the phrase. Some think that maybe he's addressing the high nobles, the wealthy people. Sons of Adam is kind of a maybe a metaphor for those in power or those who have
Yeah.
wealth, maybe, or maybe it's just people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure which one to go with there.
They are whoever they are the ones who are causing the stress.
Right,
And they have to have enough connection with this person or the community, people in the community. They got to have enough influence in that person's life to create the stress. There
right,
are some people who have absolutely no impact on me whatsoever. I could care less what they think. But there's other people, when they say something or do something, that certainly does create a lot of stress. And whoever these people are, you know, the psalmist, I think in verse 1, has given it to God, and he has the confidence that it's taken care of. That's why in verse 2 he turns. Now he
mhm,
starts to address these people. Why are you going to keep on doing this? How long is this going to go on? And obviously it's been going on because he uses that phrase, which I did some counting this week. That how long is like 60 times in the Bible. It's like, man, that's a lot. How long is this stress going to continue on, or how long are the innuendo or the snide remarks, the hidden attacks, the seeking my demise? How long is this going to go on? How long are you going to attack my honor?
yeah,
Um, this is, and of course, honor in the ancient Israel was that's the worst thing you can do to somebody
yeah.
is attack their honor. It's worse in that culture than physical violence in
Um,
ours. And that's almost hard for us modern people, especially in North America, to
and you're
appreciate.
talking more at kind
And
of the personal level of kind
yeah,
of the assaults we might experience as
yeah,
people, as individuals.
yeah.
And there's also, as you said, I think maybe this might be part of the community
Yeah,
that he's worshiping
yeah,
in this community, and there are people in the community who are he's talking to them. So how long are you gonna keep doing this? You
that's right.
know, and
I,
some suggest that maybe seeking after lives or it was like seeking after other gods, that maybe there's an
yeah,
anti-idolatry polemic going on here, that we're here to worship Yahweh, we're here to worship the Lord, the God of Israel. So how long are you going to keep seeking these other places, these other
yeah,
spaces
yeah,
to find your security, whether it's wealth or power or other gods, and that kind of
absolutely.
idolatry, the idolatry of money. Is that what you're going to? Is that where you're going to find your security?
Absolutely.
Is that how you're going to rest well at night? You're
Yeah,
going to be able to
yeah,
sleep well
yeah,
by finding that
yeah.
stuff.
And it's their interaction with this person. It shows whether they're pursuing idols or not. It isn't just the idol itself, but it's the character that's produced within the people.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
you
it kind
read
of works
Psalm
at all
15
those
and Psalm
levels.
24, it's not ritualistic stuff that defines the person coming into the presence of Yahweh. It's those who speak no lies, those who do nothing bad. And I think of Job 29, when I read this text, his comfortless comforters come, and what do? And Job defends his honor, and you guys are
Mm,
attacking me. You're supposed to be on my side. But when truth and justice and faithfulness is not what's defining you and your relationship, like my relationship with my God, then chances are you might be serving Baal or some other god,
right.
maybe yourself. But I think you're right. There is some kind of polemic here, that they see themselves as still part of the community, but they're going through that act, but
They
it's
got
their
some,
actions of unfaithfulness
yeah. They have vain
show
words
them.
and
They,
lies.
yes,
They're committed to something else,
they're
not to
committed to something
the
other than
the way.
my righteous God, other
Right.
than my. That's right, other than the
Yeah.
way.
And
Uh,
so you get in verse 3, then this series, you begin a series of imperatives, like he's continuing to talk to the
that's right.
uh, know in verse 3, or
Yeah,
tremble in verse 4, or
yeah,
ponder in verse 4, or offer sacrifices, verse 5, put your trust in verse 5. So you get
yeah.
5 imperatives that are seeking to shape the community into a particular kind of person. This is who we
That's
want to
right.
be. We don't want to be
That's right.
seeking after lies and
That's
deception.
right.
We
We
want to
don't want to
be,
be like
yes,
them.
right.
We actually want to be like God.
We
Those
want to follow the
particular.
way, right?
That's right. We
Mhm.
want to follow the way.
So when
Um,
he says in verse 3, know that the Lord has set apart the faithful, the Hasid, the faithful, the Hasidic Jews, right? I mean,
yeah.
there's this
Yeah.
the faithful ones that said, okay, you may be assaulting me, but the Lord knows who I am.
That's right.
And the Lord knows the distinction between the wicked and the righteous, which, that was in Psalm 1 and 2, right? Psalms
It
1
is.
and 2. God knows the distinction. So you're not going to worry me,
That's right.
sort
Yeah.
of thing. And that this assembly doesn't need to worry either because God knows. And
Absolutely.
God, when I call, God will hear me because he's the God of my righteousness, right?
That's right. And that's the confidence that's being
Mm,
shown here.
yeah.
I it's kind of like Paul saying the Lord knows who are his, and
Mm.
that's here. We know inside whether we are following the way or not.
We know what
And
our commitment is.
that's
We
right. We
know,
know
yeah.
what our commitment is, and Yahweh does too. He has not been deceived.
Mm.
The wicked often lie in their hearts, and that's something
Right.
that comes out in the Psalms. But we know that the faithful are set apart; they're dedicated to God, and He Himself is the one who has done that.
Mhm.
He is the one who has marked a space for them. I think there's some liturgical background here, almost like setting things aside in the tabernacle or the temple and they become holy. That's what's happened
Right.
here. We
Yeah.
have been set apart by God. Okay, we're the faithful ones. Not we're not perfect. We're just attached.
We're in
We are
covenant with God. We're
walking.
committed to that
That's right.
covenant.
We're in
Mhm.
covenant with God, and we're walking on the path. We're
Right.
walking on the way, on the derrick.
So,
And
the next imperative is, tremble. You get in verse 4, when you're angry or when you're disturbed. It's actually the
yeah,
word kind of shake or tremble or
right,
quake. It's kind of like, now, whenever you're feeling that uneasiness, whenever you're feeling that instability in your life, don't use that as an excuse to sin. I mean, don't
that's right,
respond to that instability by sinning.
that's right,
Respond
that's right.
to that instability by pondering it on your heart, by saying
Yeah,
in your heart, literally is what it says,
yeah,
saying in your heart on your bed, and be
yeah.
silent before God. In other words, pray this prayer is my
Which
another way of saying that.
which is a stark contrast to him. He's going to
Mm,
sleep in peace.
right.
They go to bed and they're trembling or they're quaking. They're consumed with anxiety. Things are not quite right.
But
They're
they're
living
learning.
their
They're learning
life.
to be silent, though. I mean, this is
There
what
they
he's telling
are.
the
They are.
church.
So rather than taking that opportunity to plan to do something wrong, take that opportunity, as it says
Yeah,
another place, be still and know that I am God. You
exactly,
know,
exactly.
come together. We're sitting on this bed, and as we know from Deuteronomy chapter 6, when you sit at your bed at night, you're supposed to ponder the Torah. You're supposed
Yeah,
to think about the way of God. So when you come, take that trembling and give it to God and allow Him to turn that into, as I'm thinking about it in my mind, almost like a worshipful response. The
mm,
trembling can be a good thing. The trembling can be turned into awe and reverence, and
right.
our hearts can be molded into walking on the way.
Well, and
Um,
the
so,
Septuagint translates this. The Greek Bible translates it. Angry. When
yes,
you're angry, or be angry but sin not, which is what
yeah,
Paul quotes in Ephesians 4
we're
verse
Paul, yeah,
26. So it's
yeah.
not always wrong to be angry, but it's
It's
what
not.
you do with your anger.
It's
What
what
do
do you
you
do
do
with your
with it?
anger?
How do
That's
you
right.
how do you respond to that anger when
That's
you're
right.
responding
That's
to
right.
injustice or abuse? And don't respond in returning evil for evil. Don't respond with sin.
That's right.
Rather, you know, reflect on it in your heart. Go to bed in silence and give it to God. And then when you get up, offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. In other words,
Yeah.
recommit yourself to the path of God. Recommit yourself to the righteousness. The right sacrifices. Same word is God of my right, God of my
Absolutely.
righteousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm still committed to this way. So
Absolutely.
I don't want to take my trembling or my anger and do evil, return evil for evil. I want to take my anger and my trembling and continue in the way.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
I
an
don't know if that's
invitation, actually,
sure.
to do what the psalmist himself is doing.
Right.
The psalmist he's troubled. Uh, his he asked God for peace. I've given it to him. Now it's okay. Or I'm going to sleep in peace. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get on my bed and I'm going to surrender it all to God because God is in control. He's the God of my right. So that's what it's an invitation almost for these people to become part of the faithful ones.
Mm,
It's like, okay, yeah, you can do this. And that's what it is. In the worship assembly, it's always geared towards not shaming people or condemning people. It is molding people and inviting them to walk on the path themselves. Here's a
right.
perfect spot to step on the path. Forget yesterday. Let's put one foot on the path today and let's go this way. And now night is coming, so it's a
Yeah.
good time to
Let's
do
go to bed
this.
in peace, right?
That's right.
And let's go to
So
bed in recommitment to the way
absolutely.
of God. So as he's addressing the assembly in verse 6, he turns his attention to God, to address God,
Yeah,
but he does so by kind of setting up that everybody is seeking good. Everybody, oh, that we might see some good, and maybe
yeah,
prosperity or
yeah,
maybe, shalom, whatever. I think the good is a big concept there.
yeah,
We want to have a healthy, stable, prosperous, life where we're not
yeah,
always in
yeah.
turmoil, right? So we all want to seek good, but that good comes from the call upon God.
That's
Let
right.
the light of your face shine upon us, O Yahweh. Yahweh,
Yeah,
shine upon us. And that's where you mentioned earlier the Aaronic
yeah,
blessing. And that's
absolutely.
certainly
So
referring to it here.
yeah, it's the this is a gift of grace. The good in the world is always something that flows from God into the world. It's got that creational and redemption rhythm going through here, the evening and morning, as we've already mentioned, the Genesis 1 thing. But the priestly blessing coming out in the midst of all the chaos, and maybe if we want to look at the world and say the world is quaking and not exactly the way it is, but we're asking and we're yearning for a good in this world. Well, God, that's what we need. We need you. Let the light of your face shine on us. Let your presence be with
Mm,
us. Let us see this, and that's and and it's that presence that face of God, that in spite of everything else that goes on, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Because where God is, there's life, there's liberty, there's
Oh, yeah,
goodness. And
the effect of
um
that Aaronic blessing is verse 7, you have put
yeah,
joy in my heart. I'm going to ponder in my heart when I lie down to sleep, and I'm going to ask for your face to shine upon me so that I might have joy in my heart as I
absolutely.
reflect on you and think about you. And I have more joy than the biggest celebration of a harvest possible,
That's
right?
right. Yeah,
It's a huge harvest. We're not gonna starve during the winter. We're gonna have some
yeah,
food,
yeah.
and
It,
that kind of joy. That's the kind of joy we can have on our beds
that's
as
right.
we ponder God in our hearts.
Yeah, it's almost like the fruit of the spirit. When
Yeah.
God's uh, when God's presence is there, it bears fruit in us and through us as a gift
Hmm.
from the Lord to us that gives us a state. It
Yeah.
is the graciousness of verse 1. Be gracious to me. This is it.
It is a
God
divine
is,
act.
it is. You
You
put,
instilled, you put in my heart.
that's right.
Right.
So, yeah, it's divine action, divine, almost like an act of creation that God has done this. This is something from outside me. I did not create this, I didn't earn it. It's a gift.
Yeah.
And
You
all,
seeking
and
good. This is where you find it.
this is where you find it. You find
Yeah.
it in the presence of the Lord, and the Lord places this um, in us. And it's such a wonderful and the fact that he compares it to grain and wine. Wine was often seen as this wonderful blessing from God. Psalm 104, God gives wine to gladden the human heart.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
and it, but it's not just that. It's that wine has a certain effect on you. Wine, well, from Psalm 104, it gladdens you. It makes you, well, this is what God's peace does to us. This is what God's presence does to us. This is what God's face does to us. It has a
Yeah.
similar effect upon us as a good Merlot or something
Yeah,
along those
you can
lines.
actually
So,
hear Paul in Ephesians 5 kind of doing that. Don't be drunk with
absolutely,
wine, but be filled with the Spirit.
be filled with the
You want
Spirit.
the joy and the celebration and the sense of peace and that some people think they can find in alcohol alone.
Yeah,
No, we don't be drunk with wine, be filled with the Spirit. And I think
that's right.
that there's a gladness that God puts in our hearts that's better than wine. Yeah.
Absolutely,
But wine is
absolutely.
also
Amen.
one of the means by which God does put
Yeah,
joy in our hearts.
that's right.
So
That's
as
right.
we look at the last verse here, Bobby, in verse 8, we're coming to the conclusion. Says, okay, I'm going to lie down now
Yep.
and I'm
It's
going
the
to
end of the
sleep in
day.
peace because I'm still talking to God. For you alone, O Lord, make me lie down in security. But I'm going to sleep in shalom, in
I'm gonna sleep.
wholeness and fullness.
Yes,
I'm going to have this kind of stability. When I go to bed, I go to bed without worries. You
without
might say,
worries.
I go to bed with peace, and
Yeah,
I can sleep well. And I think
yeah.
all of us, going to bed. Sometimes we got stuff, just in our head, turmoil in our, we're worried about the next day or the next thing we're supposed to do, and we're trying to figure it all out, and we're worried about our kids or
Hmm.
be able to find space to not just self soothe, but to find space to lean into this joy that God, this good that God, this grace that God can give on our beds, to
Absolutely.
just rest in that and to sleep well
That's
because
right.
of our because we know who in whom we rest
That's
and
right.
who God is gracious and God is shining his light upon
Yeah,
us.
yeah. It's casting our burdens upon him
Yeah.
as Jesus invited us to do.
Well, First Peter.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cast our
uh,
cares. And in Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew
yeah.
6, right? Yeah. Hmm.
So, um,
Well, with that in
I
mind, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit. And then I want to talk about also something that's really important to me in this psalm. But you have on occasion used this psalm to talk with people about how to pray. So,
that
what do
is
you see in
correct.
this psalm that gives you some contours for how to pray or what praying is like?
Okay. Well, I have used it on several occasions for just that kind of thing, and I wrote a couple of articles in wineskins on it. And in the second part, usually what I do after explaining how I think that the Psalms function as prayers, um, I allow this particular text because little background here, like after I went through my divorce, sleep was one of the worst things I could find. I couldn't find sleep. And so Psalm 4 became a really powerful text during that time because it talks about laying down and sleep. And so I used to talk about, you don't want to close your eyes because when you close your eyes, you have nightmares, you have dreams and memories and things like that that are just, well, they're not pleasant. But what I want is for God to help me in that particular way. So I actually use the actual words of the psalm. So I'll give you an example. So it says, "Answer me when I call, O God of my right. You gave me room when I was in distress. Be gracious and hear me, O my God. O Lord, the night has come again. I am drained. I come to you because you are my right. I have no secrets from even you, even if I tried to keep them. It's been a tough day. In fact, it's been a series of tough days, God. I'm trying to do what is right. You know I am. You know that I have failed all day in spite of my intentions. I beg you through Jesus, who prays with me, to have mercy. I know that sometimes I sound like a broken record because I just keep lifting up the same old stuff. I am more tired of that crap than you are, God. So hear me one more time. And then I go through, and then on the part about actually laying down to sleep. Um, let's see here. I will both lie down and sleep in shalom, for you alone, O Lord, make me lie down in safety. Father, I know that it has been the same song in the millionth verse, but I have laid my burdens at your feet. Keep me from picking them up again. Help me to close my eyes in your shalom, that no matter what anyone says or does, help me to know that I am yours. Please keep the dreams away. Keep me in the palm of your hand until I wake, filled with gratitude for a new day of grace and life. Father, I'm grateful for the long history of your family, and it's with the psalmists, Christians through the centuries, and most of all, our brother Jesus. I offer this prayer to you. And so I basically used these particular verses, um, the actual words of the text, and then I let that shape a response uh, to the text. And I pray, and I can do that in many different ways, but this in this particular example, it was going through a life experience that I found it difficult to rest in God, but I wanted to have that faith. I wanted to have that trust and that
Yeah.
connection. And Psalm 4 provided a way of structuring the actual words that I said to the Lord. Um, I hope that makes
No, that
sense.
makes perfect sense, bro. It's a
So,
way of
uh,
praying the Psalms, using the words of the Psalm to
yeah,
be not only your prayer, but also a way of interacting with God, engaging God,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
responding to God. So
Yeah,
you pray the words of the Psalm in verse 1 and in verse 8, and then you're responding to those. Okay, that's in
absolutely.
my situation right now. This is what it feels like, and
That's
this is
right.
why these
Yeah,
words are important to me in
that's
this
right.
moment of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really important, and learning how to pray the Psalms that way. As you said, it's not the only way to do it, but
absolutely.
it's an effective way of doing it.
Yeah,
I like the Psalm also because it reminds me of going through recovery,
yep,
12-step recovery. The 12 steps of the Alcoholics Anonymous.
yep,
One of the things that Alcoholics Anonymous really impresses upon you in the whole 12-step recovery program is that when you go to bed at night, think about your day, walk through your day again, find things to be grateful for,
Yep.
find where you made some missteps, maybe some amends you need to make tomorrow. In other words, it's a way of settling your day so that you're not going to worry about it anymore. You
That's
know,
right.
you're going to be
Yep.
grateful, and you're going to identify, and you're going to recommit to a better day the next day. And so you are, in effect, laying aside that day. You're
That's right.
recognizing it's good, you're recognizing it's bad, but now it's time to sleep.
That's right.
I hear that in this psalm as well. Not exactly the
Yep.
same sort of thing, but if you want to find goodness, you want to find what's good, then let the light of the Lord shine upon us, and
Absolutely.
let God fill our hearts with joy as we lay down to sleep. Let's lay
Yeah.
aside the stuff
That's right.
that burdens us, and let's rest in God as we lay down at night. And I know that's a tough thing to do for a lot of people, and it's a tough thing for me to do on occasion.
I
Um,
think it is. I think it's an act of surrender.
yes,
Uh,
surrender. Yeah,
when he says, I will both lie down and sleep in peace, for you alone, O Lord, make me lie down in
right.
safety.
Yeah,
I hear a connection to Psalm 23 there, but also you're in no more vulnerable place than you are when you're asleep.
mm,
You, I mean, you're defenseless, you're helpless. It's like it is an act of surrender.
yeah, yeah.
God, I am letting go of this day. I'm letting go of what has happened with these people. I'm letting go,
Of my
and I'm
worries.
giving it
Yeah,
to you.
yeah.
And now, what comes, what may, I won't even know about it because I'm
Right.
asleep.
Because I put
And
my trust in you. Verse 5.
absolutely,
I put your trust in the Lord and not
absolutely,
in the worries of the day or the worries of tomorrow. But tonight,
absolutely.
lay it all aside, sleep well,
Sleep
sleep
well
in
in
peace,
shalom.
in
And again,
shalom.
that's the
Right.
last word of the priestly blessing. It's the very last thing. And this is the goal.
Mm.
We cast our burden upon God in the face of everything. The fiery furnace is going on around us. But you know what? I can sleep in the fire furnace. I can do that
Yeah.
because Yahweh's with me.
I can sleep
And
well. Right.
absolutely.
Not just out of fatigue, but I can sleep
That's
in
right.
peace. I can sleep in peace. Right.
It's a gift of grace. Sleep is a gift of grace.
Oh
So
yeah. I
absolutely.
love it.
Yeah, me too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Bobby. This has been
You're
great.
welcome. I've enjoyed it.
I enjoy our conversation over these
Me
songs.
too.
I hope
Yep.
other people enjoyed as well. But as we conclude, let's use the Pauline blessing. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all. Amen.
Amen.